guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank, and today we're going to talk about Shazam. So, I went and saw this movie, and honestly, it was fun. I think that's sort of the best way to sum this up. It's a fun experience to have at the movie theater, which is it's a bit different from, let's say, the last superhero movie we saw, which is Captain Marvel, and it's a bit similar, though still different, to Aquaman. And it's also very different from other DC movies that have come out. Um, and that isn't bad. Let's get this out of the way. If we were compared to, say, Captain Marvel, I'd say you'd be pretty happy to see a protagonist that feels pretty invested and interested in the movie. But there were some problems that sort of came out throughout the movie. But let's go over what we talk about, the pros, the cons, then we'll go into a bit more spoilerific stuff. So pros, this movie looks great, the fight scenes are great, the transformations from Billy Batson to Shazam is great, the performances are great, some of the characters feel a bit underused, that's a con. The villain's pretty cool. Dr. Savannah is a great villain. He looks like Andrew Klavan. If anyone here knows who Andrew Klavan is, he looks like Andrew Klavan. It might just be because he's bald. Billy's character felt a bit over the place sometimes, which I'll go into a bit more detail later on. It doesn't quite feel like this story knows what direction it wants to go in. 1 minute it is about Billy trying to find his mom, then Billy's with his foster family, then Billy thinks family's a bad thing, then Billy wants to find his mom. It feels like there is an attempt at a real story, but it tries to tell too many different stories. There's Billy learning to be a superhero, there's Billy learning to be with his new family, and there's Dr. Savannah coming to find Billy. And these all don't get the same equal treatment. And that is sort of a problem. I think what would have been best if this story had picked a set direction. Out of those 3 points, 2 of those really only needed to get focused on. Maybe we didn't need a big villain like Dr. Savannah. The tone of this movie is a bit over the place. It feels like anytime there's something funny happening, it's then undercut by something serious. Then whenever something serious happens, undercut by something funny. You may have seen a trailer where Billy is trying to stop a bus. So that scene looks pretty intense, looks pretty serious. But the problem is, where it looks serious, Billy as Shazam is just making a bunch of jokes, or rather, it plays the scene up for laughs as people are possibly going to die. It also feels a bit overly corny. I'm not sure if I like sort of meta commentary on superheroes, but at the same time, I think it also sort of works because it's the idea of it's the ultimate teenage fantasy. We get to be a superhero, although I think that's just a fantasy a lot of people have. A lot of people want to be amazing, want to be a superhero. I like how some of that plays off in the end. Ultimately, it's not as epic a story as Aquaman or Dawn of Justice or Justice League or even Captain Marvel. It's much more simpler, and I think it should have really played up to that simplicity, the idea of family. And maybe this could have been a 2-part movie. Overall, though, if you haven't seen this movie, I would suggest you do see it. Again, that tonal whiplash is a bit much, but overall, I think you're probably going to like it. If you didn't like Captain Marvel, I think you might like Shazam. If you liked Aquaman, you'll probably enjoy Shazam. If you're looking for something, if you love Dawn of Justice, you probably won't love Shazam. I think that's the best way to sum it up. But I love Dawn of Justice, and I like Shazam. So I highly recommend, I do recommend you see this movie. So let's go a bit more spoiler heavy. So, again, I talked about the idea of Billy's parents, or his foster parents. Let's break down Billy to his parents, to his foster parents. So in this story, Billy was separated from his mother, and he spent the better part of his life looking for his mother. He spent a lot of time in different foster homes and orphanages, just sort of breaking into police computers and looking for information on a Rachel Batson, and he's pretty much turned up nothing. And this is sort of the one plot about Billy that is sort of inconsistent, because it starts off in the movie, and then we're supposed to believe that Billy gives up, And then, for the most part, in terms of family, Billy views family as unnecessary. And the problem with this is, well, Billy spends a lot of time looking for his family. If anything, he should just sort of be accepting the idea that he's alone in the world and he has trouble adjusting to being part of a family. And we can see this play off with how he interacts with Freddy. Now, Freddy is a bit much. I'm not quite sure if you're supposed to like him or dislike him. He seems to have embraced the idea that he's a cripple, as he calls himself. And he talks about how, he doesn't want to be invisible. Like, as a superpower, he'd rather fly. And I think he sort of rationalizes that people try not to see him because he's a cripple. Because he needs a special brace to walk. And that works, I guess, but the problem is Freddy sort of imposes himself on Billy when he becomes Shazam. And sometimes that works, but other times, though, it's clear he wants to stand out. He wants to be at the forefront. He doesn't want to be invisible. The sequence when Billy is learning to use his powers as Shazam is actually, I think, a really, really good bit, but it also sort of plays up to the idea exactly what a superhero is. Billy and Freddy seem to think being a superhero is not really saving the day because, well, Billy doesn't have any enemies yet, but also just doing tricks and whatnot and videotaping him learning to use his powers on YouTube and making a lot of money off of it. Must be nice. But again, it sort of falls apart because it doesn't quite really build up Billy and Freddy's relationship, and that's sort of where this movie, I think, ultimately falls apart, is that Billy doesn't interact much with his foster family. They're built up a lot. Mary is going to college soon. Billy's foster parents mention in private that Mary had run away twice when she first arrived. Darla is the sweetest thing ever. She's like Jesus, like sweet, adorable Jesus. And it's clear that she wants as many foster siblings, as many siblings as possible in her life. Eugene is Asian. And as many Asians go, he plays video games so well that he can pretty much hack into anything. Pedro wants to get swole. He wants to get buffed up, but he's also struggling through school. Now, the thing is, each of these aspects I think is really cool. The thing is, though, is that Billy doesn't interact with these characters, so we get them for one moment, and then they're pushed aside to the background. As a matter of fact, we don't see them all together until they reveal to Billy that, hey, we tracked down your mom, found out where she was. And it doesn't quite feel earned. It just doesn't. Like, I get Billy's desire, but earlier in this movie, as Shazam, he told Mary that family doesn't matter. Family holds you back. He all but pretty much said her foster family doesn't matter when she feels like she's not ready to go to college to be separated from her family. Which to her, foster family, biological family, to her, it doesn't really matter because the family she has now is what matters. Dr. Savannah, outside of looking like Andrew Clavin, what I liked about him was that he felt like a really good villain. If I had to compare him to anyone, I would say Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda, in the idea that he was denied the chance to become the champion of magic, and he doesn't quite know why Billy gets accepted. He wants to know, like, why wasn't I good enough? And that works, but it doesn't quite work thematically with the character. I get the idea. Dr. Savannah's childhood was terrible. He had a dad, he had a sibling, and they were terrible. All right? Billy doesn't have a mom or dad. Nor does he have a sibling, and when he tries to get one, he pushes them away. Ultimately, Billy has what Savannah always wants, which is people to think he's good enough. Billy doesn't have to do anything to get his foster family to love him. They automatically say, look, you're here, you're part of the family, and we're going to love you. His foster dad even says, like, look, we're just going to provide him with love, care, and family, and if he doesn't like it, he doesn't like it. And Savannah never got that from his dad. He was the second child, and his dad already had the child that he wanted, so whatever. The problem is, those two things don't really play into each other. I guess you could say thematically it does, because at the end, after Savannah kills his dad and brother, he's defeated by Billy's siblings, as well as Billy having resolved issues with his mom. Coming up to Billy's mom, I do like how that plays out. The fact that Billy visualizes a different um, telling of the event when he lost his mom. In his mind, there was a really fun day at an amusement park, and he got separated from his mom, and then he never saw her again. And what really happened, according to her, was it was not a great day at the amusement park. She was tired, she was stressed, she was doing her best, and at 17 years old, she just couldn't deal with it anymore. And when she lost Billy, she did find him. But when she saw him with the police, she's like, okay, he's safe, he's fine. And she left him. And then when Billy finally meets her again, she wants him to go. She wants him to leave. Like, you're good, like you're healthy, you got a family, you could just go. We don't need to talk. And that, I think that's a really great idea, because in a lot of ways we felt that she could have just easily been dead. That is something I do like about these movies, about this movie, is because it does play with your expectations. Even Billy suggests that his mom is dead. And early in this movie, we think Savannah's dad and brother, or at least his dad, will die early on, but they don't, and it forces Savannah to deal with them. Again, I would have liked to see more with Billy interacting with the family, which might be a bit of a bit of a stronger point to have the story on, where Billy feels that, his new family's given so much, and he's really done nothing. And to see Billy try to help Pedro with his schoolwork, help Eugene be a bit more social, be a specific kind of elder brother to Darla, and I guess a twin brother to Freddy? Yeah, Freddy's kind of a jerk. Maybe he's the one that helps Freddy make friends, which he doesn't do at the end. Speaking of the end, there is a scene here where people think Henry Cavill has been replaced as Superman. And that's because, well, someone shows up wearing a Superman costume, but we don't see his head. From what I've heard, this is because Henry Cavill was busy filming another movie, so they got someone else to show up dressed as Superman, and they only showed him from the neck up. This, in my opinion, works just fine. If he'd been replaced, we'd have more than likely seen the head. Overall, though, as I said before, I think this is a good movie. I think it could have done with a bit of tweaking, more emphasis on the character interactions than just Billy and Freddy. The Shazam and Billy moments, I think, were great. Watching Billy go back and forth between Shazam and himself by yelling out Shazam, I felt was fun. This is pretty much a comic book accurate film. It plays around with some things. Like, from what I've gathered, Billy's mom is dead, and it's his dad that lost him. We also see in the comics that we've been going over that, hey, Billy's dad may not be exactly what we think. This might be the same story, just with Billy's dad. Billy's dad's the one that left him. We don't quite know yet. But I'm looking forward to more. Mr. Mind might be showing up in the next one. I hope this movie gets to do a sequel. I don't see why not, but they need to do it quick, because child actors grow like weeds. Just look at Game of Thrones. Anyway, with that in mind, let's bring this video close here. If you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Did you see Shazam? What did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave that down in the comment section, and I will catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching, and may your fandom serve you well.